It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. If you're having port problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but crypto ain't one. Year was 2019, and my port was red. In the rear view mirror, the truck and fed. Got two choices, y'all: sell it and go, live with my mommy and buy some crypto. Now, I ain't trying to go back to living like a teen. Plus, I got a few dollars I could start the dream. So I pull up Coinbase and I buy some BAM, some Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. Next thing I know, I'm a little in the hole. But diamond hands, baby, yeah, that's all I know. So I do a little research and I see a little thing online about an NFT. It's the future, right? I'm all about trends. My friends think I'm crazy cause I bought two of them. Fast forward a couple years, I ain't dumb. I got 99 problems, but crypto ain't one. If you're having port problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but crypto ain't one. Hit it. Shout out to Trainwreck from the comment section on one of my recent videos where he suggested I do a spin-off of the 99 Problem song, so that one was for you, brother. Today we're going to jump into the Bitcoin price, kind of what I see potentially coming for that, as well as Bitcoin dominance, a couple altcoins I'm watching, and then a follow-up on a previous altcoin I mentioned. If you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. Alright, it is only right that we start out on the S&P 500, or the SPX. This is the 4-hour chart. Now, we've been tracking this potential rising channel. Now, it has a 68% chance this breaks to the downside. Now, there was this key zone of previous resistance right here. This is where the double top happened that led to a decent-sized pullback. And we were at that zone of resistance a few days ago. I mentioned that we were able to break above it. It looks like we've wicked down and retested both of that zone today, as well as potentially the bottom of this, rising channel. Now, what I'm kind of watching for with this, and to me, this will lead to what Bitcoin decides to do over the next 24 hours. But what I'm guessing is if we open tomorrow and this thing decides to break it down, now keep in mind the measured move, let's see, actually I've already got it right here. We'll go ahead and clone this. Now, the measured move, if this breaks down, actually makes a lot of sense. So if this breaks down tomorrow, the measured move is the bottom of my green zone, which you can see has been a key zone of previous resistance here, support back here on the bottom. Let me get my paintbrush. Support back here on the bottom, here on the top, bounced here briefly. So anyway, this isn't a super, super strong zone, but you can tell by the VPR as well that it sticks out, that it's one of the more traded areas. So a breakdown would not surprise me. As long as we could bounce there, that would still be low, higher low, higher low. That'd be bullish. Even more bullish, obviously, would be if we just bounce again, starting tomorrow. Start heading up here to the point of control on the 4-hour, or what's going to end up being another big area of resistance. So we'll keep an eye on the SPX to give us clues as to what Bitcoin's going to do. And that leads me to the Bitcoin 1-hour chart. Now, my theory kind of on why Bitcoin hasn't had a bigger pullback yet is because the S&P 500 has been strong still. Today, it's looking a little bit weaker, like I said on that last chart, has potential to push, to break down. And I just think Bitcoin's kind of been waiting on that. Now, Bitcoin's in one of two potential patterns right now. You could make the argument it's in this kind of symmetrical triangle. You could also make the argument it's in a falling wedge. But at any rate, it's kind of just making a rounded top, which is a bearish pattern. Obviously, if you flipped that upside down, it'd be a rounded bottom, which is bullish. And the measured move for that, if you just kind of consider this right here to be the bottom, let's just say this thing decides to break down with the SPX. Your measured move for that would be down here, kind of like back, basically a retest of these 200. I'm on the 1-hour, but it'd be a nice retest of the blue and yellow 200 moving averages I have here. If you kind of look back down here, when this first, this last low happened, what the heck am I on right now? Okay, wrong thing. Okay, if you look at this last low down here, of course, this is kind of when we began the push up in this rising channel. The 200, it broke above and retested here, and it's been above it ever since. It kind of, worked its way up higher, came back or retested it here, nice little double bottom. And it's just been pushing up since, but it hasn't retested it since. And it's very bullish that it hasn't, but what I would kind of think would make sense, and would also be in confluence if the SPX has a little pullback, is that Bitcoin comes back and at the very least retests these 200. Now keep in mind, if there's a decent pullback, Bitcoin has a habit of putting in what I call scam wicks, but just it likes to wick below what you expect just to kind of liquidate people that are over leveraged. So a push all the way back down here, maybe to like 4K, 43.8, 44 wouldn't surprise me if this breaks down. Now I say big if because a lot of people missed this last pump, and so there's a lot of people on the sidelines right now waiting to get in. They want lower prices, and patient people always do win, so they're being patient, but at the same time the market likes to sometimes not do what the majority of people want it to do. I think a lot of people would actually like a pullback. Anybody in coins, of course, doesn't, but if you're in, if you're not, you would love to see Bitcoin pull back and test 43 or 44K, right? Because altcoins will have a pullback as well, and you'll get better prices. So we're keeping an eye out for a couple of these ideas, but just from a fib perspective, SPX, it would make sense for this to break down at some point. I've even been targeting, it's a little lower than a lot of other people have talked about, but I've looked at this as kind of a parabola where you had this pump, base 1, pump, base 2, right? Pump, base 3. So like the top of base 3 is sitting here at about 43,500. Now, a lot of times you get base 4 and then a blow off top. Now, it didn't really blow off because it's just doing a slow rounded. But at the same time, if this were to pull back, it could make sense for it to retrace all the way back to the top of base 3, or even maybe down to this 0.5 fib level, which is from this swing low, which was the last low before the trend changed, right? That's a very common retrace level. So if we were to get a pullback to like 42,500 or 600, that to me would be the golden area to go big on some altcoins. I just don't know if we'll get that deep of a retrace. And then just really quick before I go over my couple of coins, I wanted to go over Bitcoin dominance. This is the 4-hour chart. Now, I previously mentioned in other episodes that we were tracking this large rising channel, and then it was able to break down and bearishly retest. And then I also mentioned that while the measured move is down here at about 41.5%, and that this move down could represent a good kind of mini altcoin season, that it wouldn't do it all in one move. It was going to have an impulse wave down, impulse wave up. Key is that it's a lower high. So we had this high, and now this is lower. Now this is just a potential idea. There's not enough touches to say this is a valid pattern by any means. But because we had this little rising channel developing and we broke to the downside, it gave me the idea that, hey, maybe we go ahead and push a little bit lower, before we push up. But at any rate, we had an impulse wave down, impulse wave up. Looks like we're working on the next impulse wave down, which would make sense for it to be lower than this low. It already is, but it would make sense for it to go a little bit lower. So basically, anytime this is trending up, that's bad for altcoins. If it's trending down, that's good. It is one of the charts that I'm probably watching the closest, just to kind of give me ideas if we're still in this mini altcoin season or if it's time to be cautious, as long as we continue to put in lower highs. So even if this bounces here at this level of support, that was key support back here, right, would make sense. But the key is, does it push up? And does it stay below this high? If it stays below this high, gets rejected and starts trending back down, altcoin season still on, baby. And then the first altcoin I wanted to go over today is actually a large cap coin. This is AVX. What I like about AVX is it's just forming kind of what I would call a parabola over the course of the last, this is the weekly chart, so this dates back to 2020. But you had what I think is kind of like a base 1, explosive move, base 2, explosive move. I just think we're on base 3. Now, this is going to take time to play out potentially, but, if you look at this little chart above, usually base 4 ends up being a pretty big move to the upside, and then it consolidates a bit before the blow off top. So the blow off top might be a year and a half away, right? But what I'm looking potentially for, and we'll zoom in here in a minute, but what I'm looking potentially for is if you take this swing high with the fib retracement to the low and just kind of look at, okay, there was this top here, right? It retraced back and bounced. Well, where it's at right now is the golden pocket as far as the bounce goes. It's just taking the fib level and dragging it the opposite way. So instead of finding the retrace, we're looking for what would be like the retrace pump. And so what I'm looking for is for it to break that. So the 0.618 to 0.65, that's the golden pocket, right? And it's at that zone right now. I want to see it break that and flip that as support. So we're going to zoom in to kind of get some ideas on that. All right, so this is the AVX 4-hour chart, and here's what I'm looking for. So you have this key area that I have marked in red where it was previous resistance. It's been resistance here before a pullback. It's been resistance here and here, bounced, hit, rejection, hit, big rejection, resistance here. A lot of wicks that have went up into this zone, but not any candles recently that have closed, right? So what I'm looking for, we're pushing up to the top of it as we speak, but here's what I'm looking for. We're at 98.38. I'm looking for this to break above the top of this red zone. It's going to obviously probably retest, but I want to see a 4-hour candle, preferably 2, close above this top of this zone, which is basically right around $100, but we'll just call it 99. If it breaks above and has 2 4-hour candle closes above, that's where I'm going to start DCing in. This is a coin I'm going to do a little different than my 15, 35, 50. I'll probably go 50-50. I will probably DCA in 50% of what I want to put in there. Not financial advice, and you don't have to follow me by any means, but AVX looks like it could have a pretty big run going forward, so that's where I would first enter. Now, of course, if Bitcoin has a pullback, and this is kind of like an Elliott wave thing, we have 1, 2, we don't know where this will end up. This could be the top, and I could end up being, wrong. We pull back, and if we pull back, this is the strongest area of support right now, at least on the 4 hours, as far as a VPR goes, kind of the top of this last move up. So then where I would go, big next would be if it pulls back to around $90, 91 to kind of front run it. And I'm okay with that. Pullbacks are okay. You have to remember that. As long as you don't go all in at one price, pullbacks are a good thing. It lowers your average price. And this thing, if the altcoins have another decent little altcoin season or a run, this AVX has 2x potential, which is a lot for a large cap. Like, it could easily definitely go back to its previous all-time high at $150, and that's a 50% pump. But I think what would happen is it would hit that, consolidate below, break above, retest, and push higher. I think $200 in the next few months is definitely in the cards if Bitcoin acts right. And so I'll be keeping an eye on AVX. Now, this is a bit of a messier chart, but the second coin I'm looking at is Polkastarter. Ticker is POL. And kind of what I'm looking for on this coin is it had this large, falling wedge. A lot of times I just draw the top trend line because that's really all I care about, is it when it breaks that. Well, it broke it. Now I missed this move. This wasn't a coin that was on my radar at the time, but it had this huge impulse wave where it broke above this zone of I have it as support now, but it was resistance at about $1.50, pumped all the way to 273. So like a huge move to the upside, right? But then it pulled back, and if you just take that swing low to swing high, which my fib retracement level shows, anytime you have a move of that kind of magnitude, or what I call a parabolic pump, it's very common in crypto and stocks for that to retrace to the 786, so almost 80% of that move. So like if you bought here and didn't sell up here, you've given back 80% of those gains, right? But it was also a retest of the large downtrend line, right? Pumped all the way up, retested, and now it's just creating what we call a rounded bottom, which is a bullish pattern. It's a series of lows, higher lows, higher lows. It's just kind of consolidating, and it's right below this 618 level. Now, if it could break this, so if you can get a little break of about $1, we'll just say $1.63, if you can get a little break above that retest, then this thing could easily at least pump back up, to the red zone I have here, which was major resistance in the past. Blew right through it this time, but it's been major resistance in the past a couple of times, and support back here, right? So you could ride that. It's about a 22% gain up to like the $1.90 region, sell about $1.85 just to make sure you get your sell order in. But that's my first target. But if you want to midterm hold this thing, then I expect it to at least get back up to where this pump was at around $2.50, $2.60. The measured move of this potential inverse head and shoulders it's kind of creating would actually be up here at about $3, a little over, but a lot of profit taking will probably happen at about the $3 range. So keep your eye on Polkastarter. And then the coin that I wanted to give an update on is API 3, which is a Web 3.0 coin. I've mentioned it a few times on the channel. We were trading it below 570, and I'd mentioned if it was to break above 570 and flip that as support, that would be a good trade. It ran at that point all the way to 650, so if you took that trade, good job. Oh, hey, AVX just gave us an alert. Let's check it real quick. That's okay if that's on this video. Let's go see. It's giving me that alert because it's trying to break that zone, so nothing too significant. So back to API 3. So it's been in this potential, since it hit that top up here, it's been in this potential falling wedge, right? So that's just a series of lower highs and lower lows. But what we're looking for now is it had this low here, one final low, and now it's kind of breaking across up above the top of my trend line. So now what I'm looking for is this could end up pushing up to like 590, but basically if this can pull back and put in one more higher low, either at 570, which we're barely above, that's kind of been my target area for opening a new position on this trade. But a lot of times you do get wicks lower, and if Bitcoin pulls back, which we talked about at the beginning of this video, it wouldn't surprise me if this thing pulls back to the 0.51 last time at around 535. So I'm targeting that as kind of my bigger area to open a trade on here. And then at that point, because that would still be a retest of this, if it comes up and does it slowly, it'd be a retest of this rising wedge it's breaking out of right now. And at that point, it should at least push back up over time, back over here to the $6.50 range. You can start taking profits on the way up, a little bit at the 590, a little bit more at like 620, and then leave a little bit in the trade and just see how it reacts when it gets back up here to 650. My guess would be if the market's somewhat bullish, it'll probably consolidate, create a little, potential ascending triangle, then we might get the break, retest, and the bigger move I'm waiting for. But if you wanted to sell everything on the way up, that would make sense too, and just wait and see if it is able to break out, retest, and head higher. But keep your eye on API 3. Holy moly, if you're a busy person, I apologize. A little bit longer one today, but we had a lot to go over, and so we did. I also want to mention that I started a TikTok, same username as my YouTube channel, TAwithMMK. And what I'm using that for is just to post the beginnings of my videos, kind of like the little silly things I do at the beginning. So if you mainly only come to my channel for those, or maybe if you just want to check those real quick one day, go ahead and follow me on TikTok. And then as far as YouTube goes, if you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. It's